And of course, I want to thank the Oklahoma Foundation for Excellence, all the board members and the trustees that are here for recognizing me and sponsoring this reception. I'll go through and let you see, and by the end, you'll realize what an impact this organization, Fund for Teachers, has had on my teaching and my career and everything that has just kind of, you know, snowballed into where I am today. But I also, Kathy, where'd Kathy go? Oh, thank you, Kathy, and Emily. And then where's Brenda? My friend Brenda, and everybody from OFE, I just want to thank you so much. And then, of course, I want to thank John and Becky. John has been such a great friend to me. Being the State Teacher of the Year is such an honor, but it's kind of a lonely thing because you're on your own. You're pulled out of your community and you just are kind of a little bit on your own, you know. And John has just helped me through that process, and he started a tradition where that he modeled for me, and now I am trying to model for Becky, so that we can allow our State Teachers of the Year to have the greatest impact on the teachers around Oklahoma and the students. So thank you both for coming, and I hope that you all had a chance to meet them. John was fabulous, and I told him earlier, I would have never wanted his reign. It was the walkout and all that, and I'm like, thank the Lord I got this year. And Becky's going to be absolutely fabulous, and she will be such an encouragement and such a light to our teachers here in Oklahoma. So thank both of you. And of course, I need to thank my husband, Richard, back there, because he's the one who lets me do all these things. I say that loosely, but he supports me in all my crazy ideas. You know, he's never once said no. He's always said, follow your dreams, honey. And so thank you, Rich. And then, of course, my colleagues who are back at this table, who I will have some of them mention some of them later, but all of them have played such a huge role in my career and throughout my projects. You know, things that we've done, you can't undertake on your own. And that's the thing that's really different about the teaching and education today. There's no standalone teachers. If you're a standalone teacher, you know, you're going the hard way. You need to have your colleagues, and in order to be an outstanding teacher, you really need your colleagues. And I have some of the most fabulous colleagues. Some of them are back at this table, and I will refer to them later, but thank you so much. And then also the tribal leaders. Thank you for supporting and coming on board and partnershiping with Fund for Teachers. I hope by the time I go through how it's impacted my life, that you'll see what type of investment you are going to put into the teachers of Oklahoma, and you are going to get an amazing return on that in the form of greater engagement in the classroom and greater learning potential for our students. So thank you so much. And, you know, I would be amiss if I didn't take some time to thank Dr. Boren. And even though he's not here, you know, Dr. Boren, for decades, he has supported public education in Oklahoma. And, you know, he founded the Oklahoma Foundation of Excellence to recognize academic excellence when it wasn't the trend. He was a visionary. And he has recognized for over 30 years our outstanding academic students and teachers at all levels throughout our state. And this foundation has created a ripple effect. And now there's over 220 foundations throughout the state. That's amazing. And if I could stand here and tell you, like my local Broken Arrow Foundation, the impact that they've had on my life. And so, you know, what Dr. Boren has done and his impact on Oklahoma education is just going to continue for years to come. So even though he's not here, we all know, I mean, he's just impacted my life through this organization, and I just want to thank him publicly. So being a national finalist for Teacher of the Year, you know, if I could say one thing, it has come with many questions and interviews. Everybody, all of a sudden you're an expert. And people want to ask you anything that has to do with education and anything that doesn't have to do with education. I have fielded so many questions from so many different avenues. Legislators, other teachers, magazines, let's do a podcast, let's do this interview, TV, all these different things. And I think about the many questions that I fielded over the last 2 years as Oklahoma Teacher of the Year, and then also now as a finalist, because it really bumped it up when you become a finalist. And I thought, I'm going to try to pick one question that really stands out in my mind that I've fielded on several occasions. And that question is, were there any defining moments in your teaching career? So I fielded that quite a bit. And I'm here to say absolutely yes. So I'm going to go through some of them. The first one was 15 years ago. And I decided to take a risk by asking my students in my environmental science class to critique me in my class. Yeah, wow, that's right. Now, it might not seem like that big of a risk to you, but I teach high school. And teenagers can be brutally honest, okay? So at the time, I was teaching over 140 students. So I said it could be anonymous. So after I fielded all these critiques, I was going through them. And most of them, I can say, were kind of complimentary. There were a few that I'm not going to mention. But as I read through them, one main theme seemed prevalent throughout all of my classes. And it really surprised me. Students found that the environmental topics were very depressing, and they felt powerless to make a difference. So much so that several of them even commented that they didn't want to have children. They just were not going to have children now because their children were either going to ruin the earth or the earth would be irreversibly ruined and their child would suffer. Now, as an educator, it's really not that encouraging for your students to tell you that your class has depressed them to the point of altering their future family planning. That was not what I wanted to read on those critiques, but I was surprised. That's how dull I was. I had no idea I was depressing them. But I want to tell you that it caused me to contemplate on how I was teaching my class. Now, I'm going to tell you I was considered a pretty good teacher at that time by my peers in my administration. My classes were centered around projects. We did labs, we did outdoor activities, but, and John, you're going to like this, they were all designed by me or other organizations with the intent to just emphasize the curriculum. None of my activities empowered my students to become change agents. None of them gave them autonomy. None of them allowed them to choose the problem of interest so they could attempt to solve it. None of them tapped into their deep sense of purpose to want to make a difference in the world. And that was the moment that I knew I had to alter the way that I was teaching. And I began to present real-world problems in a way that they could come up with the ideas to solve them. And that we went through an innovation process that allowed them to start to think outside of the box and really see that their ideas were relevant and they had potential to change the world in Little Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So we begin our journey by targeting just campus projects, local projects, and even a couple national projects. And I want to tell you, sometimes it was messy. Teachers don't like to be messy, but it was messy. It took an enormous amount of time And it took a lot more grant money. But it changed the depth of academic learning, the level of engagement, and the personal connections in my classroom. That was my first defining moment. About 6 years after this, during a classroom discussion on international food insecurity, in the back of the room, one of my female students raises her hand and she asks me, why aren't we helping to solve these problems? This is international, not just local, not the creek, over there. Why aren't we doing anything? And before I even thought, I said, we can, and we will. 2 words that changed the trajectory of my students and my teaching. That question has yielded over 7 years of student-led international projects to provide clean water and protein to orphans in Kenya. The initial project evolved into a large aquaponics system in a remote region of Kenya called Tharaka. Now, taking students to Africa is not like going on a field trip to the zoo. No. Our trips were not school-sponsored. So we had a tremendous amount of planning prior to taking our students. I needed considerable help, and we found it in my 2012 Fund for Teachers Fellowship that allowed myself and my colleague, Cindy, who's going to stand up back there, Cindy Baritban, an art teacher who has to have her coffee and her sauna in the morning or her bubble bath. I convinced her to go to Kenya with me, okay? So we traveled to Kenya on our Fund for Teachers Fellowship in 2012 to lay the groundwork with local schools and to build relationships with many of the Kenyans. We had to learn about tilapia farming. I knew nothing about tilapia farming. I can guarantee you Cindy knew nothing about tilapia farming. We had to do that. And then we also had to plan. We had to bring students over. So we had to, where are we going to stay, what meals, what do we got for transportation, what types of building supplies do we need to get in order. And I can tell you that that trip revolutionized my teaching career in ways that I never dreamed possible. The following summer of 2013, I convinced Cindy to go back again, and we took a student team, and that's when we built the large-scale aquaponics system to raise 1,500 tilapia fingerlings to feed an orphanage in the surrounding village. It was an adventure. Once again, like I said, Cindy was with me, and I'm going to use her quote upon our return to the U.S. What happens in Kenya stays in Kenya. So, 8 months after we had completed our project, I received a phone call from the founder of the orphanage asking if my students were up to solving another problem, the cost of the fish food. The commercial fish food was unaffordable, and the tilapia could not be harvested in a timely manner. So my students and I began looking for possible solutions and discovered a grant from MIT that encouraged inventing solutions to real-world problems. It was that spring, 2014, when I was honored to receive the Medal of Excellence for Secondary Teaching from OFE. And here's the key. It carried tremendous weight on my application for the $10,000 grant from the Lemelson MIT Invent Team program, which became our avenue to solve the fish food problem. So together we created a low-cost, sustainable fish food from indigenous Kenyan ingredients. For 2 years, and my friend Jill Taylor was my co-sponsor on this, for 2 years, our students worked on creating multiple fish food formulas and testing those formulas on tanks of tilapia. Yeah. In 2015, I received my second Fun for Teachers Fellowship. Remember, it was only 3 years back then. To return to Kenya, again with Cindy, yes, to make more contacts and lay the groundwork for a second team of students to travel to Kenya. One of the places that we visited on our fellowship was the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology. And that's where we met Joshua Matupu. Joshua, on his own initiative, because we met him and we just bonded, became involved and helped us with our beetle colony preparation. The following summer, we took our second team, this time, Jill Taylor, stand up, Jill, who worked through this whole process with me. She also accompanied me and her husband to build the system and to train the local Kenyans on how to produce the fish food. The relationship with Joshua that was birthed on my Fun for Teachers Fellowship has been invaluable. He has been a constant source of support and has helped us with our project we did last summer, which is a little bit different. Now, last summer, this time, Debbie Pettis, stand up, Debbie, accompanied me last summer back to Kenya. Hey, I can talk anybody into anything. Can you start to see that? With our third team, and this time we went to build chicken coop and a harvesting facility utilizing the black soldier fly larva native to Kenya to provide chickens a natural food source. Our goal was to provide protein for a school in Machakos, Kenya that rescues HIV orphans and victims of child bridehood and female genital mutilation. The system we built doubles as a research prototype that Joshua has been monitoring to collect data. We hope to use the data in creating a large-scale production of low-cost, sustainable fish and chicken food with the goal of providing it at low cost to help children who are suffering from protein deficiency. My students, both in my classes who had the opportunity to work on these projects and those who were able to travel to Kenya, will never be the same. Their trajectory in life has changed. They have the mindset that they can make a difference in the world. They have confidence and grit, the grit that it takes to work on solving relevant real-world problems. And they also have developed the concern and compassion to help their fellow man. So as I trace my steps backwards, and I wonder, how did I ever become a National Teacher of the Year Finalist? Four defining moments. 2 in the classroom, taking the risk to give a survey, and then changing the way I taught my class. The second one, answering yes to the question, can we solve problems addressing international food insecurity? And 2, outside the classroom, my Fun for Teacher Fellowships, and receiving the Medal of Excellence Award. So I say to you, if you have no other examples to see the value of your investment in a fellow or a medal recipient, please consider me. Your investment has had a profound impact on the lives of my students, our local community, the state of Oklahoma, people in Kenya, and now on a national stage. There's 8,500 other teachers that are having an impact because you are investing your time and your energy. And I just say, thank you so much for investing in me. I am who I am as a teacher and a person, partially because of you. And my students are not afraid to tackle difficult problems that face them today in the world because of you. So I thank you. And I thank you so much for this recognition and for your continued support of education and me personally. Thank you.